What is up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the Dense Pixels podcast, the podcast that is also an Xbox, along with many other things that are out there.
Took me a second.
According to Microsoft. I'm your host, Brad, joined by my co-host, Micah.
Hey.
And Carrie.
What's up?
The games are great right now. Sorry we weren't around last week. I was not feeling it. I was still in post U.S. presidential or just elections in general malaise, and I had a lot of shit to get off my chest, which we did on the most recent episode of Look Forward, which you guys can check out if you care about such things. But look, the games are good, but people are still upset because the Game Award nominations came out today, and people are real mad about the fact that a DLC is allowed to be nominated alongside other whole-ass games, and I gotta tell you guys, I just do not give a shit. I really could not possibly care less about people's whining about an awards show, which, let's admit it, we all watch really for the trailers more than the actual awards themselves.
Yep.
An award show that has kind of fallen into like a lane of being the AAA game showcase, which is not where a lot
Jeff
of my
Keighley's jerk off fest. That's really
which is not where most of my gaming sensibilities lie anymore. Like obviously, like I'll play some AAA games, but you know most of the shit that I play is indie stuff nowadays, and indie stuff is almost completely unrepresented in these. Usually, aside from a token award or two. That indies qualify for. But people are real upset that Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree is nominated in for 5 different awards. Yeah,
including Game of the Year.
Yep.
Best game direction, art direction, RPG, which is interesting because I don't consider Soulsborne games RPGs. I consider them action adventure games, but regardless,
I used to work with a guy who thought that all games are role-playing games because you are playing the role of a character.
I mean, I have heard that argument before from other people, and I guess it is the worst kind of true, which is technically true.
Yeah, right. I mean, come on, bro. I get it. You're a pedant, but you know what they're talking about,
right?
Yeah.
I mean,
here's the thing about Shadow of the Erdtree, right? Is that it may as well have been a sequel rather than a DLC. In so much that it really does require you to beat the majority of Elden Ring in order to access it. It requires you to understand the majority of the story of the base game in order to understand what's going on in Shadow of the Erdtree. And it contains roughly the same amount of content as the base game. So I would personally
go that far, but it's got 30 hours of content, which is not an insignificant amount of content.
Yeah, I mean, let's call it at least 50% of the base game, you know.
Fair.
So it's one of these things of it may as well have been a standalone kind of sequel, but they chose to do it as a DLC. And that's their prerogative because, rather than doing an Elden Ring 2, they just did this enormous DLC. So
and not only that, it was one of the most talked about, discussed, celebrated.
It was one of the biggest gaming things that happened this year,
right.
And one of the largest big budget things, enormous impact in terms of people talking about it, people playing it, just huge thing that happened in gaming this year. I personally have no problem with it. But it does sort of set this precedent moving forward as far as okay, so that does mean that large DLC packs then do have to be considered for Game of the Year moving forward. Now that is to say that were they considered previously? is this the first time this has happened?
I was going to say,
or?
I don't know that it was nominated for Game of the Year last year, but wasn't Phantom Liberty nominated for several awards that weren't just like the best DLC that came out last year, if I'm not mistaken? Pretty sure that it was.
I don't
I think they
recall.
used Phantom Liberty as the way to get Cyberpunk an award, right? Because they, they couldn't in their right mind like keep credibility by putting like they wanted to put Cyberpunk as Game of the Year, but they couldn't, right? So I think they used Phantom Liberty as like, well, this is a Game of the Year contender because like this is the real game, like this is the
Right.
like
So,
all right.
And honestly, like if you want to be mad about a game qualifying for Game of the Year and like 3 other awards, we were just talking about before the show, like Black Myth Wukong was in the zeitgeist for like 3 days. And,
Yeah.
and I feel like it's only there because it's sold like crazy, because everyone in China bought it, and I'm sure that on Jeff Keighley's like global panel that he puts together to decide these awards, a lot of people probably put Black Myth Wukong because they were, close to it, or they remember it, or whatever the case may be. Like, I don't think personally Black Myth Wukong probably should be up for as many awards that it is. Like, art direction, sure. Game direction, I don't know. I didn't play it, so I can't really say. But, like, Game of the Year, like, I don't know. Like, I forgot Black Myth Wukong fucking existed a week after it came out, in all honesty. Whereas the other 5 nominees, I hear people talk about them every month, basically, like on stuff that I listen to and things of that nature. The 6 nominees, by the way, because we kind of glossed over that part, for Game of the Year: Astrobot, Balatro, Black Myth Wukong, Elden Ring: Shadow of the Erdtree, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and Metaphor ReFantazio are the 6 Game of the Year nominees, and I think the exact 6 games are also nominated for Best Game Direction. So I would imagine that there's going to be a split. A split winner across those 2 things. We're not going to go like comprehensively through this list, but look, it was another really fucking good year for games, man. Like, there's going to be stuff that gets snubbed. I mean, we were just talking before the show, like Dragon Age: The Veilguard, for all its faults, is not even nominated. Not nominated for Game of the Year, it's not even nominated for Best Role-Playing Game. Like, there are 5 conceivably better RPGs that came out this year. Carrie was saying before the show that she was upset that Persona 3 Reload got snubbed. And obviously, like, Metaphor probably did that no favors because they're not going to load it up with Atlas RPGs, but Persona
Except
3
that
Reload.
both of them were good and were developed technically by separate studios, and Atlas happened to publish both of them. But Metaphor ReFantazio was not developed by Atlas; it was developed by Studio Zero, and published by Atlas. But it's largely the Persona 5 Royal creative team that went on, and then like Metaphor was kind of developed at the same time that Atlas was then working on Reload. I'll have more to say about Reload in a minute. But yeah, I think it sucks shit that Persona 3 Reload, which was like until Metaphor ReFantazio came out, was Atlas's best-selling game, fastest-selling game, did hella numbers back when it released back in February. And yeah, it's just it's kind of bonkers in the grand scheme of things that, a game that was so big when it dropped in February is just doing absolutely nothing at Game Awards. No best RPG, like didn't make best soundtrack when like they completely redid the Persona 3 soundtrack top to bottom with a lot of new songs written specifically for Reload too. That it makes no sense to me that Reload
and look,
got nothing.
I think recency bias comes into play sometimes with these things. Like, I just feel like if you release a game early in the year, it's less likely to end up on one of these lists than games that are released later, just because those are more present in people's minds. And look, Micah was saying before the show as well that like he couldn't believe that Navi was nominated for best esports team for Counter-Strike either. Like, he was completely beside himself that Team Navi. So.
Speaking German to me, man. Best adaptation. it looks like they're talking about like TV shows and stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, they
is
are.
it so it's the best adaptation of a video game and
Yes.
not
Yeah.
the best adaptation of a property to a video game
Correct.
at the Video Game Awards?
Yeah.
Yes.
So
All
like
right, I
Arcane
mean-
being like your League of Legends adaptation, Fallout of course was great. Knuckles I watched on an airplane recently and I thought was really fun. I haven't seen the Yakuza or the Tomb Raider series yet, but I've heard both are pretty good. I'm expecting Fallout to win this category because it fucking ruled,
I mean,
honestly.
Fallout better win it. It's just odd that like this
This is a weird category, but I guess it's kind of interesting that like we live in such a time now that there would be enough video game adaptations into other media that are of high enough quality to like validate this kind of category,
Well,
right?
hold that thought because we'll get into that when we get into the post office a little bit later in the
Christ.
show. It's one of the questions. Look, frankly, I'm impressed that Jeff Keighley was able to somehow shoehorn Hideo Kojima into these award nominations. Like you thought it was an impossible task, but we forgot that most anticipated game brought to you by either Doritos or like Gillette razors or Axe body spray or some insane sponsor. Death Stranding 2 is one of the nominees. I'm sure that was put on there by Jeff himself.
Of course.
Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah,
God damn
Death
it.
Stranding
Can we go
2
1 year?
No, we
year.
can't.
That's
We
all
can't.
I'm asking.
No.
I mean, it's not going to win, Mike. GTA 6 is also on that list.
GTA 6 is going to
win.
win. My personal most anticipated is Monster Hunter Wilds, but
Hold that thought as well. Because actually, you know what? Fuck that. We'll answer it right now. We're taking a quick dip into the post office. Film Wander says, "What is y'all's most anticipated game of 2025?" Me and Carrie are aligned. It is definitely Monster
Hunter Wilds,
Yeah,
man.
100%.
Yeah, dude.
Mine is Ghost of Yotai is the Micah answer.
That's
Yeah,
valid.
right?
Not Death Stranding 2, huh? I can't believe you're turning
What?
your back on.
Not
Hideo
Hideo
Kojima like
Kojima's Sad Boy Walking Simulator 2K25.
Swear to God, man. I swear to God. Man.
I still need to get around to playing that first one. I still really want to, because again, everyone says that the director's cut version of that game is actually
shake the
quite
baby.
good. Yeah. So
Shake that baby.
hey, I got it for free. What the fuck am I gonna do? Not play it? Come on.
I think I did also get it for free,
Yeah.
wasn't it? It was free on what, Epic?
It was either free on Epic or PlayStation Plus or something along those lines. I'm sure.
I definitely have it. It's
Yeah,
not
I mean,
installed.
we'll see what happens. Game Awards are in a couple weeks. I'm again looking forward to the trailers, and we'll be here to hem and haw about Black Myth Wukong winning every award that it is nominated for. That's what you need to prepare yourself for, is the outrage when Black Myth Wukong somehow wins Game of the Year over Astrobot and Shadow of the Erdtree and Metaphor Ray Fantasio. Which
No, I think what's going to happen is watch it be like Balatro.
I would be totally fine with that. I'm not going to say which one I think will win Game of the Year between Balatro and Metaphor, because that might spoil my personal Game of the Year, which we'll do that in a couple weeks for this show. And frankly, I don't know the answer yet, because I'm very close to beating Metaphor. So I have not fully formed my opinion on Metaphor.
Here's what I'm most looking forward to as far as the Game Awards. With regards to Game of the Year, all this means is that we're going to get hella Balatro music played by that sick-ass orchestra, and hopefully the flute guy's going to be back.
It's only one song, though. It's just the
It
same
doesn't
song
matter. Look,
over and over.
it doesn't matter. It's going to be sick. It's going to be sick. It's going to be sick. You're going to have that song played by the flute guy. He's probably going to have some big-ass super bass flute that only I know about.
This is a good pivot. We're going all over the place on our docket. I apologize in advance to my co-host. Carrie, you said you finally finished P3, the Aegis expansion, drugged yourself through it. Now you're playing Metaphor. How far are you in Metaphor? Have you even really put a dent in it?
Not really. So yeah, I finished episode Aegis on Saturday afternoon. It felt like Saturday night because it was 4:30 and the sun was down, so it felt like midnight. And then I gave myself a brain break from Atlas before jumping into Metaphor. But yeah, episode Aegis, before I discuss Metaphor at length, episode Aegis, which is the updated version of the Persona 3 FES epilogue chapter that was originally called The Answer, is still extremely mid. Overall, it's still basically just like a really grindy challenge dungeon that kind of still has like some good writing attached to it underneath it about like how to accept loss and how to like properly grieve and move on and like step forward in a positive direction after experiencing like a major loss, in this case the death of the protagonist. But it sucks that that kind of message is just like buried under a 20-hour grindy pain in the ass challenge dungeon that doesn't have most of what makes Persona really special attached to it either. It's just like, did you like Tartarus? Because that's all this is just like 80 more floors of Tartarus, basically. But I got through it. I'm glad that I did it. I was very relieved to be done with it because I knew, here's the thing, I had the whole sunk cost fallacy going on because I played Reload on Game Pass because it's still on Game Pass, which meant in my brain it was free, even though I paid for Game Pass. Stupid girl math brain.
And you also pay for your life time that you'll never get back.
Shush.
The greatest
in my brain, in my girl math brain, Persona 3 Reload was free. Because truthfully, I don't pay for Game Pass. My boyfriend pays for Game Pass. So I played that game for free. And then I paid 25 United States real money bucks of my own revenue to then play episode Aegis as the DLC. So I went, well, I spent my own money, so I have to finish it. So I finally finished it, and I started Metaphor yesterday afternoon, or yesterday evening, really. I got through the like tutorial zone. I'm probably sure basically still in the tutorial zone, right? Like I really just unlocked the first 3 archetypes, and I beat like the like fat little white man in the mines, and then he ran away, and so I've like stopped at that kind of like midpoint in the mines.
You're still technically in the demo.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure like I'm still like in the demo area, right? So it's like I've only played like 2.5 hours of this game, but I'm liking it a lot so far. I appreciate that like it is very much a Persona game, but it's different. I like the front row, back row mechanic. That feels like old school Final Fantasy in a way that makes my old school Final Fantasy loving brain very happy. I love the music. I know I've talked about this before, but this does feel like Shoji Meguro basically returning to what he was doing with Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey in terms of the overall orchestration and these like crazy like choirs and like male choir doing these chants in the background and whatnot.
Speaking of Game Awards, you know the chant guy is probably going to be joining the orchestra.
Oh yeah, 100%. No, it's gonna rip. Yeah, I'm very pleased with what I've been playing so far. It's so heavily stylized, but in a way that's like different from, you know, the way that Persona 5 was and then Persona 3 Reload was, right? I appreciate this like mystery of like what are the humans really and like what's going on. I love the fact that Luis is just immediately the most cartoonishly evil villain just like on the planet. Like from the jump there is not any doubt that like this dude is evil. This dude is the villain. There's no like question about like, well, maybe he has some little like redeeming quality about him. Maybe it wasn't him that murdered the king. And they're just like, nah, this fucker did it. It's him. He sucks. He's evil. And we got to beat his ass wholesale. I don't know.
And you'll find as you go through the game, this isn't spoiling anything. He is like one of the most technocratic villains that I think I've ever seen in any game ever. There's a scene that happens like, I don't know, a third of the way through the game where he's talking to one of your characters in your party is talking to him about something about a life-changing moment that Luis had like an impact in, and like Luis basically says to him the equivalent of like, I fucked up his couch. Like, like he's rich, he can buy another one. And he's just like so fucking matter of fact about it that you're just like, oh damn, like that's really fucked up. Like this guy sucks. So I think once you finish, because by that time all three of us will have finished it. We might do a spoiler cast.
Ooh, Metaphor spoiler cast.
The story goes some places. Micah can attest. Like it gets very interesting, and kind of like how the whole like premise of the game is unfolded and things you discover and
yeah.
like that, so.
I've already like my boyfriend's been playing it, and so for a while it's like I would be in the room just like on my phone or playing my Switch or doing something else, right, while he was playing. So it's like I had already like watched him do a lot of the early game just kind of passively, and now we're getting to the point where it's like I cannot be in the room because he is already like he's getting to these points in the story where it's like I do not want to see these story beats ahead of time, basically. Like I want to experience them organically, and it's like he will only play when I am like down here at work, or if I am out of the house for D&D or anything like that, or if I'm like asleep because he stays up later than I do. So it's just we hit a point where it's like he is so much further ahead of me because he's been playing for the last several weeks. Where like he's well into spoiler territory for me, and I cannot perceive that anymore. So I have to catch up, but I'm looking forward to playing more Metaphor after we're done recording this tonight. I'm enjoying it quite a bit so far.
And speaking of games that I'm very curious to get people's impressions on, Micah downloaded Balatro recently?
Yeah. Because it just came to mobile, like last month or something like that. And turns out I have Apple Arcade. I did not know that. But I have
surprise.
It, so.
I wonder how many subscriptions Micah has that he's paying for that he just has no idea.
I'm tight with $1, so I'm usually pretty aware of it. But yeah, it turns out I have Apple Arcade, so I downloaded that because you've been talking about it, and I was walking my son to school, and the neighbor, she has a kid, and so we walked together, and she saw me wearing my N7 hoodie, so she's like, "Oh, this guy's a fucking dork. Let me talk to him about video games." And she was like, "Yeah, my husband's playing the Veilguard," and she's like, "I like games, but like I'm not like super into it, but he did get me this game called Balatro." And I said, "Oh, my buddy Brad talks about that game a lot." She was like, "It's super fun. It's super addictive." So I was like, "You know what? Let me see how much this is." And then I started a little Balatro Plus. I'm like, "Oh, that means it's free." So I downloaded it and I tried it. And once I got through the rhythm of it, boy, that game is super fun, man. Like, it's addictive. It's really, really addictive. I'm having a real good time with it. Like, it's worth the $10, right? I don't know how it plays, on PC or on a controller, but the game was meant for a touchscreen. Like I would imagine it translates better on a touchscreen than having to navigate, your deck. But yeah, man, it's a roguelite, and it's super fun. Like, you don't need to be a poker expert. You just need to know what poker hands are. And
I don't know these things.
If you don't, guess what?
So,
guess what?
yeah.
If you don't know what poker hands are, they tell you what they are when you play them.
Yeah.
Right?
Sick.
And if they tell you what they are beforehand, and they tell you what they are in the round. So if you have a set of cards and you don't know what to do, maybe you're like, okay, well, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is something good, right? Then if you select those cards, the game will tell you, hey, that's a straight, right? Like this is, and it's worth this amount of points or whatever. So the game very much walks you through it, and the the jokers are all very unique and very fun to play. As the jokers are basically modifiers for your in your deck for the round that you're playing in. Look, I can't get it, I can't describe what this game is. I don't have the words to
Hmm.
describe this game because I play it and I get it. You get it once you start playing it. You play a couple of hands and then it just kind of clicks. And it's super fun and it's so hard to put down. And it's a perfect like train game or toilet game. You know what I mean? Like it's super fun, man. Super
I
fun.
mean,
So
like I said,
spoiler alert
yeah,
for what's
I
going to
bought
be
it.
on my list.
I bought it when it first came out, like January, February this year, and I think I'm almost at like 100 hours in the game on
Yeah,
Steam. Like
yeah.
it's crazy how time easily melts away. Like I remember when I first got it, I think one of the first play sessions I played with it, like I just played it for like 4 hours straight and did not even realize that 4 hours happened. And it's
Yeah.
one of those. It's one of those.
Yeah.
And like the song, like there's only like one track in the entire game, but it just kind of like hypnotically plays in the background, and it just kind of like helps that sense of like losing time and stuff like that. It's a great fucking game. It's, I mean, it will for sure be on my game of the year list. I just don't know where
Yeah.
exactly it's going to end up on there. So let's take a quick break, and we'll talk about some stuff that I've been playing recently. So I, in between trying to get to the end in Metaphor, there's a couple other games that came out that I was really excited about that I also have checked out. The first one is the newest game in the Gold Master series from Digital Eclipse. And for those that don't know what those folks do, or the couple games they put out recently, basically Digital Eclipse has come out with a few games that are essentially digital museums of sorts. The first one in this series was Atari 50, that really just kind of took you through the history of Atari. And not only does it have like a ton of games that you can play on there that kind of take you through that history, but it also like has videos, photographs, screenshots from these games, and they do a great job like interviewing people that were there at the time and kind of know these stories. The one that came out just last week is Tetris Forever, and this is basically the story, past, present, and future of the Tetris franchise, which is a game franchise that's near and dear to my heart, near and dear to a lot of people's hearts. Some of this story is well known at this point because the Gaming Historian on YouTube put out a really good documentary on how Tetris came to be a couple years ago that I would recommend checking out as well. But the difference there is that, the Gaming Historian video was kind of like a told history, whereas this was, again, interviewing Alexei Pajitnov and interviewing like Hank Rogers and people from other companies that were involved with the creation of this game and eventually the publishing of this game, because Tetris, for those that aren't aware, has a really wild publishing story, because it was a game where, because it was developed and made in communist Soviet Union in the late 80s, kind of locking down the rights and securing the rights to the game to publish it was a lot more difficult than it would normally be in normal circumstances. So lots of really cool interviews. Like there's hours of interviews on here. Tons of like photos, screenshots, box covers, that sort of thing from all different versions of the game. The big failing of this one, and I don't blame them for it because of the publishing rights, is it does not have the NES and the Game Boy versions of Tetris on here because Nintendo actually published those games. I should say the US version of Tetris for the NES. But it does have basically all of like the Famicom and Super Famicom versions of the game, as well as the original version of the game from the Electronica 60 computer that Alexei Pajitnov programmed it on. And it has like really good ports of all those as well. And it has other games on there that are kind of in the story. So like Hank Rogers, for example, like the way that he got to publish Tetris in Japan is because he had a good relationship with the president of Nintendo, because they were both avid Go players. Go is an old board game from back in the day.
It's like chess, basically.
Yeah. And Hank Rogers published who lived in Japan. Hank Rogers also a fascinating character. I think he actually comes out of this documentary as like the guy that really gets his profile raised, because he's a really important person in gaming that a lot of people don't know about. But because he had a close relationship with the Nintendo president through their mutual Go game, Hank Rogers published and developed a small like 9x9 Go game for the NES that is also on this collection. And also come to find out that like there was like a sequel that was made called Boundless that a developer made. That was actually the developer of the guy who started the Pokemon franchise, made this kind of Tetris ripoff. And Hank Rogers is like, I could have just published the game without him. He's like, but I ended up, taking care of him because it was the right thing to do. And we packaged it with future versions of Tetris. And all the Boundless games are on here. And Hatris, which was like Alexei Pajitnov's like next game after Tetris, is on here and playable as well. So lots of really cool shit. And again, like I think Hank Rogers is really an interesting character to kind of get to know about. And he along with Pajitnov kind of takes center stage through a lot of the videos, and kind of like his role in all of this is pretty remarkable, just because of like the chances that he took and how daring like he was to like go to Moscow and try to get these rights secured and stuff like that. I saw someone post on Blue Sky that after watching this, like Hank Rogers is the guy that Tommy Tallarico thinks that he is. Essentially, like Hank Rogers actually is that guy.
Oh my gosh!
So like that's kind of his whole jam, and it kind of takes it up to all the different versions of Tetris that we've seen, including Tetris Tetris Effect and Tetris 99 and all that good stuff. The modern things that we know today. The other thing that's on here, aside from all these retro versions of the game, is a new game called Tetris Time Warp, which is fine. Like, it's a version of Tetris that occasionally, when you clear a line, the game will like throw you back in time to one of the older versions of Tetris, and you have to kind of play through those as well. It's a cool gimmick. It's an interesting thing to mess with a couple times. I'm not going to be returning to Tetris Forever to play Tetris Time Warp like over and over again. It was a nice novelty, but I will stick with Tetris Effect, which is my preferred Tetris game at this point in time. But again, really cool. Tetris Forever, liked it a lot. I have Atari 50 as well. I'm looking forward to getting to check that out at some point here soon. But if you are a Tetris fan, or if you just want to get good insight onto one of the most storied games of all time, this is definitely worth a look. The other game that I started playing is a sequel to a game that I really liked, that I talked about on the show a couple of years ago. This is The Rise of the Golden Idol, which is the sequel to The Case of the Golden Idol. The Golden Idol games are deduction games where basically you are presented with a scene of usually like a grisly murder or some fucked up thing happening. And you have to search the scene for different like clues, and then sort of fill in like a Mad Libs puzzle with the correct people and adjectives and nouns and stuff like that to describe what happened in the scene. And if it sounds easy, it's really not. Like, you really have to pay attention to everything in these scenes to kind of mentally put these things together. Rise of the Golden Idol is a great sequel in that it takes all the things that Case of the Golden Idol did really well, and it just ups it. The visuals are much more polished than they were in the original game. The things they kind of the dots they ask you to connect There's more of them, I guess that makes sense. Like, so every level has like a story that you have to fill in, right? But there's also like, you know, like in one of the levels, like there's a device that has all these fingerprints on it, and you have to figure out which people touched it. So you have to like match like each person up to their fingerprint and stuff like that. The other thing that's really neat about this one, so in the first one, each scene was like serialized, right? Like they're all connected as part of a broader story, but you just solved each scene at a time, and it kind of moved towards this overarching narrative. Rise of the Golden Idol is broken up in chapters, right? So like each chapter will have 3 or 4 scenes in there, and after you solve all the scenes in a chapter, you then have to like use all of the information that you gathered from all of those scenes to summarize like what happened in the entire chapter, which is an extra degree of difficulty. The best way that I can kind of describe these games, and playing this has made me want to go back to this series. It's very much like the Ace Attorney games, just without the courtroom scenes, essentially. Like it's more about the investigation scenes, and then you have to put all the pieces together. They're really fun. They are games that make you feel like they make you want to like punch a wall sometimes, because like there's like this missing piece that you just can't link this thing together. But when you do figure something out, it makes you feel very smart. And I like a game that strokes the ego a little bit and makes you feel like you're a fucking genius for seeing this like very small clue, or like, you know, putting these puzzle pieces together to figure out what happened. And again, like I said, the stuff that's happening, like the whole premise is about this like mystical golden idol that causes like really fucked up shit to happen. So like if you like those kind of stories, then you'll also enjoy like the overarching plot of this one as well. And the other thing they did was very cool is that all of the UI improvements, they kind of retroactively put those improvements into the first Golden Idol game for free. So like if you haven't played the first one, this is the best time to play that one as well, because they took some very cool UI stuff from the sequel and retrofitted it into the first game, kind of like a Mass Effect 1 Legendary Edition situation. So I like Rise of the Golden Idol a lot. If you like deduction games or like puzzle games, this might also be one to give a shot to as well.
Sick.
Let us move from there on to the couple of news stories this week. We've talked a lot on the show recently, especially about games preservation and how a lot of companies just aren't fucking doing enough.
Just don't give a shit.
Yeah, just don't give a shit, because of course publishers don't care, because they want to, you know, potentially sell you those games down the road. And government doesn't care. Government doesn't seem interested in preserving, you know, what is the dominant medium of our time. You would think that they would want to. Maybe they'll get there eventually. Probably not in the next 4 to 8 years, I would imagine. But some companies are carrying the torch for this. One of them is GOG, Good Old Games, the game store, the DRM-free game store that's run by CD Projekt Red, of course, have been working on a new preservation program that takes classic games, which don't always run well on modern gaming hardware, and they are basically taking versions of those games and fixing them so that they can be forever enjoyed on modern systems, which is, I think, a really important thing to do, and especially for lay people who don't want to have to rely on downloading like patches or mods or things like that to have to make that shit work, is really good. They did put out a list of the first games that are compatibility certified in the series. That includes games like Resident Evil, Warcraft, Dragon Age, the original, which notoriously is a game that does not run well on modern hardware. The original Fallout games, System Shock, the first Diablo, the Heroes of Might and Magic franchise, Dungeon Keeper, the original Witcher, the Monkey Island games. So that's kind of the breadth of what you're getting here. I love this. I hope that publishers cooperate with them to assist in this as best they can.
There's no downside to cooperating with them on this. Like there's literally no negative thing that could come from preserving old games, especially given that the Video Game History Foundation reports that 87% of games created before 2010 are currently inaccessible today. That's a lot. That's a lot of games that you cannot play by legal means today. Now, there are plenty of ways to do so by illegal means, like emulation and ROMs and all of that. But if we want to preserve games, if we want to preserve the original ROMs for future generations, I think this kind of work is really important. So I'm really glad that GOG is taking it upon themselves to do this work.
Micah, without them, you couldn't play Dragon Age Origins anymore.
Yeah, I get it. This is a wonderful idea. I mean, I don't know. It just seems. Yeah, I'm very cynical now. I've been hanging around Brad and Jay a little too long, and I'm just waiting for kind of like the shoe to drop on good things happening. You say, that there is no downside. Yeah, from our perspective. But, these corporations, if enough people are like, hey, the people really are enjoying, this game from 25 years ago, maybe we should re-release it. And I don't know. I'm just curious if something could stop this, right? Like, I don't know.
Publishers are still benefited from their games selling on GOG. I would imagine that the original publishers, if they're still around, still gets, some percentage of every game that GOG sells. And a lot of publishers rely on GOG to manage those older games because they don't feel like fucking with it anymore. Like the original Diablo's on there because Blizzard's like, we don't really feel like having to worry about the original Diablo on Battle.net anymore. So here, GOG, you sell it, and then anyone that wants it can get it through their DRM free. We'll see. Again, I think that this is something that as the years go by, we're going to need to pay more and more attention to, especially just because so many games, especially from prior to CD-ROM coming into the game ecosphere, so those games are inaccessible except for through emulation, essentially. Mm-hmm. So anything that we can do to kind of preserve those, I think it's important. Because again, the games are just the next medium, just like books, just like, movies, music, things like that. So it needs to be preserved.
Is there a Criterion collection for games?
There should be. I think that there was, I think there's been some groundswell to kind of get that going. The problem, of course, is that, it's hard to get all the publishers to fucking play ball with this shit. So that's always going to be the difficulty.
Yeah.
The most litigious gaming company in the world is back at it again, but this time it's for a just reason.
For a completely legitimate reason.
Yeah. Nintendo is suing a streamer by the name of Jesse Kayen for repeatedly streaming pirated Nintendo games ahead of their official release, according to a lawsuit that was filed in a Colorado courtroom. Basically, Nintendo alleges that this streamer has streamed 10 unreleased games that were unreleased at the time from Nintendo over the past 10 years, including recent titles like Mario & Luigi Brothership, Legend of Zelda Echoes and Wisdoms, and Super Mario Party Jamboree. Also, not helping his case, during these streams, he instructed his viewers how to get the games early, which Nintendo is calling, quote, trafficking in illegal circumvention devices like emulators and keys to access the games. This kid's a fucking idiot, man.
I mean, look, this is very much, we like to call this, in the business, playing bitch games and winning bitch prizes. Also known as fucking around and finding out. Look, it's pretty clear, if you're gonna pirate a game, maybe you wait until that game releases in full commercially to the public before you stream that game on Twitch or on YouTube, so that you don't grab the attention of folks at Nintendo. You know, now, do I think Nintendo is perhaps blowing things a touch out of proportion when they say that this kind of infringement has caused millions of dollars worth of damage to their company and lost sales? Yes, I believe that is a touch out of proportion. I don't know that one chud streaming Echoes of Wisdom a couple weeks ahead of time is necessarily causing millions of dollars in damages. That being said, I think this kid is a fucking dumb idiot and completely deserves what's coming to him, and is probably going to end up owing a lot of money and or serving jail time for doing this. So it is what it is. Again, fuck around, find out.
You know, I think bitch games, bitch prizes really needs to like get a push, right? Like I know fuck around and find out is like everybody's saying it now. But I have always enjoyed
bitch games, bitch prizes.
I have a corporate version of that I use at work that says make stupid decisions, expect stupid outcomes. So
that's a good one.
I think that, you know, I think the cause and effect, that particular cause and effect idiom needs to kind of get a push. Yeah, this kid's dumb, man. Like it just doesn't like, and all this does is give Nintendo a thing to go, see, this is why we act this way, because they're stealing our game, they're trafficking our games, and they're causing, you know, millions
of dollars in damages. Again, I think that's
this story reminds me a lot of the fucking kid who's now going to prison for like 15 years because he leaked government documents, like classified government documents
on Discord.
Yeah, in a fucking like Minecraft Discord or whatever game it was for.
Yeah,
like you're doing like, because
wasn't
the
it
thing
like
is,
Call
like,
of Duty?
It was Call of Duty or Minecraft or like Dota or something. I don't remember what it was, but this guy, this streamer, has literally been like banned from almost every streaming platform, to the point where like now he's streaming on this thing called Loco, which I've never even heard of before.
I haven't even heard of
that. Like he's even too toxic for Kick. Kick is like, we don't want anything to do with this. Your account's fucking banned. And the thing is that like his Loco page, so like the area where he's streaming right now, has like 8,000 total views. So like you are basically about to fucking find yourself in a situation where you owe Nintendo potentially a couple $1 million that you don't have, but to stream to 8,000 people. Like, is that really fucking worth it? Because apparently each violation of the of this Copyright Act that Nintendo is suing him based on, each violation is like $150,000 fine potentially.
Yeah.
On top of the anti-trafficking stuff that is also out there as well. So, you asked me if I feel sorry for this kid. I don't.
No.
not even a little bit. Like don't do stupid things and ruin this shit for the rest of us who may or may not be, you know, downloading ROMs from games.
It is
for 30
remarkably easy to just simply not be an asshole. And this kid is waking up every day and is choosing to be an asshole. So again, playing bitch games and is about to win a big ol' bitch prize, especially since he's literally like telling Nintendo, like, I got tons of burner accounts. Like, you can't possibly shut them all down. Like, cool, you're about to find out. You're about to find out, buddy. Yeah. Like, don't say that shit.
Yeah,
like,
Nintendo of America is basically an institution that is half marketing firm, half law firm. Essentially in this country.
Fucking Reggie is gonna come out of retirement and come to your house and burn your house down, kid. Like,
yeah, very, very, very stupid. But hey, sometimes when you make silly decisions, you have to feel some pain to realize that maybe you shouldn't have done the thing that you did, I might be talking about something else besides just this pirated game story. Finally, Monster Hunter, besides Monster Hunter Wilds, is getting another new game. But this one is being developed in conjunction with Tencent, and it is going to be a gacha mobile game called Monster Hunter Outlanders, which I thought was named after that third person like fake Destiny game that Square put out a couple years ago, but that was Outriders.
Outriders,
Yeah.
Not to be confused with Outrunners, a throwback tag team on AEW. I don't know what it is about out and a verb, but
Outsiders.
here we are.
Yeah,
The Outsiders.
Right.
Yeah, man.
So
Wasn't Outrun a
Outrun was also a
Sega
Sega
racing game?
Sega
Yeah.
classic
Yeah.
racing game.
The
Absolutely.
Sega game.
So
good soundtrack?
One of those games you can play within another game.
You can play it in Yakuza.
Yakuza.
Yep.
yeah. So the game alleges that it will have a traditional hunting experience with open world exploration, varied ecosystems, gear crafting, and cooperative play for up to 4 players. There will also be massive connected open world, survival features, stuff like that. And of course, many characters that you can collect with a simple pool of that sweet slot machine. I am not excited about this. This is not really my jam.
I will not be playing this. Thank you.
But it's a fully featured game, guys.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure the combat.
Sure.
I'm sure the combat on mobile will be just as Monster
Yeah,
Hunter.
I'm not doing Monster Hunter combat on mobile. I'm not doing it. I still have Monster Hunter now installed, and I will play it when I am at an airport and there are things to do. Outside of that, no, I'm not I don't play these games. Like Monster Hunter now it is 5 a.m. and I am once again at SFO, and I want to stick my head in the oven before a 5.5-hour flight across the country kind of game. Outside of that, I don't play Monster Hunter now. I'm sure shit not about to waste my time on some Genshin Impact style Monster Hunter, like Temu import bullshit game when Wilds comes out in 3 months. I'm not doing it. Thank you.
I mean,
Thanks.
I'm just happy that Monster Hunter is cool enough to get a gotcha
get a shitty
power.
gotcha game?
like that's literally designed just
yeah.
to generate revenue. Like that's the only thing this game is fucking designed for. Look, I dipped my toe into that water when I checked out Honkai Star Rail, and I played exactly enough of that.
Honky tonk train rail.
That's right, Honky Tonk Train Rail, and I played exactly enough of that until I got to the point where it was like, oh, now they want the money. No, thank you. I'm done here. Thank you for the 3 hours of entertainment you gave me. I will not be grinding to get these characters that I need in order to do X, Y, and Z. So yeah, I am in the same boat as you. I'm not going to get sucked into this. Not even as a curiosity. So
No, not doing it.
So that's gonna be it for the news.
Look at you, fake fans.
Shut up, Micah.
Fine, you can play Monster Hunter Outlanders, and you can report
You
back.
can play the shitty mobile game.
I am no fan. I am no fan. No, I'm playing the best mobile game, Balatro.
Right, all the addiction without spending any of the money. Like it's
Not even an entry point.
Look, if I'm gonna go gamble, if I'm gonna have Meemaw gambling hours, of which I have plenty of, I'm gonna do one of two things. I am either going to go buy a pack of Pokemon cards, or I'm going to go to round one and spend all of my money losing claw machine games. I'm one of those two things. I'm not gonna waste it on a gotcha thing. I will either, or I'm going to play the Castlevania marble game. That's a different flavor of Meemaw gambling hour.
Before we move on to the post office, I just want to say I did watch a documentary last night called Insert Coin, which is kind of about the heyday of Midway games.
Ooh.
Midway the publisher, not like Midway
Yes.
the Carnival kind of shit.
Yes.
And for as much as we do complain rightfully about like microtransactions and things like that, like being as predatory as they were, as they are in today's day and age, lest we not forget, children of a certain age, that the original predatory game was the coin op arcade game
was the coin op arcade.
Yeah, that was designed to get you feeding quarters into a machine that would like make you feel good for like 5 minutes and then get punitively difficult just to make sure you lose so that you could then feed more quarters into the machine.
So it's like you could get another, like, get halfway through the stage and then get to a mid boss that would beat your ass wholesale, and then you would have to insert 2 more quarters. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's not like this is a new phenomenon. It's been around forever. So we're gonna take a quick break. We'll be right back with a meaty and robust Dense Pixels post office. If you're new to the show and you're not in our Discord, you should change that right now by going to densepixels.com/fans, and part of the perks of that is that you get to ask us questions that we answer in the Dense Pixels post office, a segment that we do every week. We'll start with Dirty Taco 91, which is a name that is not bad, but it feels bad to say. I just got back in.
All right.
Yeah, I just got back into reading back at the beginning of the year, and it's really starting to look like a great decision given the events a couple weeks ago in the U.S. What books are you guys currently reading or plan to read?
So I started and did not finish, but intend to finish. John Waters wrote a book a couple years ago called Carsick, which is a collection of 3 novellas regarding what it's like to hitchhike across the country from Baltimore to San Francisco. And I started it last summer 2023, because I was in the process of planning a move, not from Baltimore to San Francisco, but basically the same thing, from Baltimore County to the Bay Area. So I got through the first of the 3 kind of novellas, because 2 are fiction and 1 is nonfiction. Because he did actually hitchhike across the country. And so the first one is like, here's the best possible scenario in his little mind. And then the second is, here's the worst that could possibly happen. And then it's here's what actually happened. So I still need to finish that. I do want to, I have a couple of the late Carrie Fisher's books. She wrote a few. I've read one of them. And I need to finish the others. I forget which one off the top of my head I did finish. But I mean, she was so funny in her writing, and just very, very sharp in terms of her wit. And it's a shame that we're not going to get any more of her writing. I would also like to read more of John Waters' writings as well. And then my partner has one of Jason Schreier's books, and it's on the nightstand. I would like to read that at some point as well. So yeah,
they're all very good. So Micah,
I just this year I read the first 3 books in the Palladium Wars series by Marco Klus. I read them because 1, they're short, and 2, they all end on a cliffhanger, right? Like the first one ends on a cliffhanger, the second one ends on a massive cliffhanger, and the third one ends on a cliffhanger, but I can take a break from it. There's one more book in the series out, and the author said that there's going to be at least 5 books. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna take a break and read something else. I've started the first book in the Greenbone trilogy. I'm actually really enjoying it. I'm only at like chapter 11 or 12, something like that. And if this is as good as everyone says it is, I might continue the rest of that, or I have this book from the authors of The Expanse.
I was just about to shout that out.
Their new book just came
Yeah.
out, so I'm probably gonna end up reading this one after Jade C.
Yeah, so Micah held up The Mercy of Gods, which I have read and liked a lot. This is the beginning of a new series for them, so I dug that. What else have I read this year that I really liked? A book from author named Stuart Turton called The Last Murder at the End of the World, which is a very interesting premise of people that are kind of sequestered on an island, and a murder happens in their midst and they're trying to solve it. I started the Old Man's War franchise by John Scalzi, and really liked that, and I'm looking forward to reading more of those. And as Micah suggested, the Greenbone Saga I think is fucking spectacular, kind of like a mixture of martial arts and The Godfather. I know I've talked about on the show before, and if you're looking for something that's like really gripping, I have to shout out the Red Rising series, which is one of my favorite series to come along in quite some time. And there's 6 books in that, and they're all very difficult to put down, I found, once you kind of get into it. So those would be my recommendations. Amir says, with these possible crazy tariffs coming up, what does that do for the next generation of consoles?
Nothing good, man.
Yeah. Also, PlayStation already has its Pro console out there with its price point, and Xbox may be coming up next. But coming after January, is that price point going to have to be something ridiculous? And we all know that Nintendo, whatever Nintendo releases, is going to sell regardless of price. I wanted to land on that last point first, because I think one of the reasons that we have not seen the debut yet of the Switch 2 is specifically around Nintendo wanting to wait and see how things shook out. Because I think that when they do announce the Switch 2, I think they want to announce everything, like price and, and release date and all that kind of shit. And obviously with the proposed tariffs that the new presidential administration plans on imposing, or at least that they said they're going to impose, that could potentially have major impacts on Nintendo's price point for the Switch 2. Mm-hmm. I think the Switch 2 was already going to come in somewhere in the neighborhood between $400 and $500, and I still think that there is a world where sticker shock for a Nintendo console is still very possible. Like, I think if you see a Nintendo, like a Switch 2 come out at $599, I think a lot of people are
That'd be a lot. I think a lot of people would hold off.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would hold off on that. That being said, I think a lot of people will still probably go for it anyway, because, I mean, we see people go for things regardless of price. You see people buying the PS5 Pros in spite of the fact that the difference between the PS5 Pro and the base PS5 is kind of negligible in a lot of ways. So in the grand scheme of things, people are going to buy what they're going to buy, and they're going to save up for it kind of regardless of price, right? And so that, given that, if we're counting, even if we are counting the OLED as your sort of like, mid life cycle pseudo upgrade over the base model Switch, it has still been a couple years since even that came out. So, I do think, your Nintendo diehards are kind of ready for the Switch 2, whatever that happens to be. So it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. I do still think, to a degree, it is still going to sell regardless of price, but these sort of proposed tariffs are going to be nutty. And unfortunately, a lot of big old dum-dums who do not understand how tariffs work are going to learn real quick how they work and how they impact the price of certain goods and services in this country. So good luck with all of that.
Yeah.
I am not excited for it. But ultimately, I am perfectly content with sitting on the current generation of consoles for as long as I can. We will see what happens. I have plenty of games to play. I am in no rush. Well, of course, then, I say that, and then they're going to be like, here's a Golden Sun remaster for the Switch 2, and then I'm going to fucking implode upon myself like a dying star.
And look, like that PS5 Pro price point, that was announced before we knew what was going to happen.
That was announced before all this bullshit.
That could, unless Sony just wants to eat that profit, you could potentially see that go to $850 within the next couple of months, which is insane. Because again, at that point, you're in mid-range PC territory, and a mid-range PC is more powerful than a PS5 Pro. So, C. Kent asks, "What is the wildest lie you've ever told, and what is the wildest lie that you've ever heard?"
The wildest that I've ever told happened. It wasn't like a single lie. It was throughout my college career when I was still living at home. My grades weren't the best. I was no dummy, but my parents expected more. And what I did in my freshman year once is I intercepted the mail. And this was before like Morgan put their, all their official documents on official letterhead, right? It was literally just like, here's a white sheet of paper with grades on it, right? And I intercepted the mail, and once I saw that, I was like, "Oh, well, this can't stand. This shall not pass." So I would recreate the thing, and seal it back up. I would get hot water to melt the glue, and then open it, take it out, and then reseal it and all that. And then like, "Oh, here's my report card." Okay. The problem with that was I didn't get any smarter. So I had to do that throughout my college career to keep up the ruse, just in case. You know what I mean?
Did you ever come clean to your parents about this?
No. No.
That's very funny.
No. Yeah, that's the biggest lie that I've ever told.
So for me, in my sophomore year, I wrestled in high school. Now the problem is that obviously in high school wrestling they have weight classes, right? And so there's 191 pound weight class for 191 and under, and then above that is heavyweight, and heavyweight can go all the way up from 192 to 275. And as a sophomore in high school, I weighed 198 pounds. But we already had someone for the 189 weight class, so I had to wrestle heavyweight, which means that I was routinely wrestling guys that weighed 50 pounds more than me, which I don't know if for those that have never done amateur wrestling, is very difficult to deal with. So I, of course, in my sophomore year, I lost every single match that I was in because of how undersized I was. And I told the coach and everyone on the team, because they all assumed that I'd come back the next year, that, oh no, I really promised my friend that I would get into this rec basketball league with him. So unfortunately, I cannot wrestle because I'm playing recreation basketball. When in reality, I should have just said, look, man, I'm fucking 50 pounds underweight for this weight class, and I'm tired of getting my ass kicked. So... But yeah, so I begged off because I did not live near my high school, so nobody would be the wiser. So I just copped out with a shitty excuse to stop wrestling.
Man.
Carrie just never lies. She just tells the
I
truth
mean,
always.
I would say mine's probably telling my ex-husband I still loved him while I was actively looking up divorce paperwork.
Damn. I mean,
let's be fucking real here, dudes. Like, that's probably it. Like, look, shit was rough. Shit was rough for a fucking minute.
Well, you hit it well. I'll give that to you. You hit it well. We are friends with people who have gone through divorces, and me and my wife are like, they not long for togetherness, and you can see it, man. So kudos to you.
As far as the wildest lie I ever heard, the wildest lie I ever heard was somebody telling people that tariffs are paid by the person exporting the good and not the person importing the good. That's the wildest lie that I've ever heard told. before.
That's funny because the wildest lie I've ever heard was we're going to build a wall to keep out Mexicans and we're going to have Mexico pay for it. That's some wild ass shit.
That's yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Jamal,
there.
Yeah, Jamal asks, you've got an evening to yourself to relax and game, watch movies, etc. What beverage are you reaching for while enjoying your relaxation time?
Let's see what you lushes have.
I have been making concerted efforts to lose some weight because turns out, on the topic of lying to your ex-husband and getting a divorce, turns out that living with someone that makes you want to lie to them like that is extremely stressful and causes you to gain a lot of weight because living with that much cortisol in your system is physically bad for you. So I gained some weight, don't like it, try to lose it, go into the gym, working on all of that. So I'm working with a nutritionist and I've basically cut out everything except water and a morning coffee in terms of beverages. That being said, I will have a occasional, and I'm talking like maybe one beer every couple of weeks kind of drink. And I was at Trader Joe's the other night and I saw that they had it was like a JoJo's, which is like their like Oreo cookie flavored like vanilla cream stout. And that shit was delicious. That was like, I was drinking that and I was like, this is dangerous. Like, I should not be having this. This is too tasty. This is too alcoholic. And if I have more than one of these in a week, I will gain all of this weight back. So it would probably be that. It would probably just be like a nice, sweet, dark beer for me.
I also haven't been drinking that much. We are in the time of year, though, where it's getting chillier outside, and my wife does enjoy a hot chocolate, and I'll often hop on that train as well. So that's a good wintertime chilling out kind of beverage. If I am going to drink a beer, it's going to be a lager of some kind. That's kind of where I've landed as far as beers go at this point. It's kind of been my drink of choice.
Nice.
Not trying to be cute or funny. If I can't remember the last time I had one. But if it's one of those nights where I just want to sit back and watch a movie, I will have a nice root beer, a root beer float.
Dude, sometimes a root beer float just hits though. Like
Yeah,
I'm
man.
at the point where it's like I would literally rather have like a diet Dr. Pepper than like a beer most nights. It's
Yeah. So I'll get myself a root beer float, and it would be like it's either Barks with Turkey Hill or an
Okay.
IBC with Briars.
okay.
Those are my
IBC root beer
combinations.
is good. That's
Yeah.
respectable. Yeah.
Johnny asks, wholesome debate for the holidays: turkey and mashed potatoes, the gravy, or ham and mac and cheese?
All right, let's do it. 1, 2, 3.
Turkey
Ham and mac and
potatoes.
cheese.
Really? I'm surprised Carrie is
Yeah.
not joining me in whiteness.
Nah, man.
I
would rather have the
knew
ham and
Micah was
mac.
going to say ham and mac and cheese.
Yeah, of course,
I knew
of
it.
course, of course. Even though my father, I went to go see my father because he's not doing too well. So we took the boys over to see him, and he was like, "Oh yeah, they're getting big. They eating." I was like, "Yeah, of course they're eating. Look at him, right? Like he's fucking eating." It's like old black man. You keeping away from that pork, right? Like, okay. Okay. You had bacon the other day. Shut up. But yeah, no, I'm gonna take the ham. I'm gonna take the ham every time. Ham and mac and cheese. Johnny did that on purpose. Johnny did that on
Of
purpose.
course, he knew what he was
Of
doing.
course he did it on purpose.
He knew what he was
He knew
doing.
what he was doing.
Yeah.
Get out of here, man.
Look, between the two, mashed potatoes can be fine. Turkey can be fine. But like, I prefer a nice, like, particularly like a ham that's got a good glaze on it. It's got that good little like crispy little edges on it, and like a good mac and cheese. Like not a white person, not a fucking like 40-year-old white lady mac and cheese that's got vegetables mixed in with it for some godforsaken reason. None of that shit. No. I like a baked mac and cheese that's got a good crispy cheese layer on top. Spiced, well seasoned mac and cheese. I don't fuck with fucking. If you put raisins in your mac and cheese, I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
you
come
put
to your
raisins
house
in
and I'm
your
gonna
mac and
kill you. Like, I don't fuck with that. I don't want any carrots or peas or anything. Mac and cheese needs to be macaroni and cheese, and that better be it. That better be it. Don't
Yeah,
fuck around
I
with that.
agree. I agree. Your mac and cheese, like
Maybe,
one,
maybe at most, maybe you throw some bacon bits in there. Maybe you throw some breadcrumbs or some crispy onions on top just to get a little bit of crunch, a little bit of texture. Outside of that, none of that.
yeah, your mac and cheese it's gotta look like it's gotta come out square. You know what I mean? Like you can't just take a spoon and it just like
No.
like gruel. Like get
No,
out of
you
here.
have
No.
to have a good cheese pull on that.
Yeah, yeah. Get out of here, man. Get out of here. It's gotta look like like the layers of the earth. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Like it can't just
Exactly.
I don't get mac and cheese at my Thanksgiving dinner. I just get we get the traditional white person fucking banquet. You get turkey and mashed potatoes and stuffing. My aunt makes broccoli and cheese casserole. That's like the fucking my family's like signature thing that's always there, which I don't eat because I don't fuck with broccoli. But that's usually what's there. And my uncle usually will make a Polish sausage, which I will definitely indulge in as well with mustard. So, Ricky asks, did you guys watch the Logan Paul, Jake Paul, Mike Tyson fight? Absolutely not. Come on.
I did.
I knew you would. I knew you would.
I did. I didn't expect much from it. The first fight was literally like a YouTuber and some other guy, right? Like it was just like the people like Rosie Perez and Roy Jones. Rosie Perez is a huge boxing fan, and Roy Jones was there, and they were literally laughing at the people in that first fight. The second fight was pretty good. Third fight was the best, and then the fourth fight was rigged because it's boxing. Like Mike Tyson even came out with a hangdog look on his face because he knew he was about to do a job for Jake Paul for $20 million. Look, get your money, but like I don't want to hear anybody talk about professional wrestling. I don't want to hear anybody talk about it.
Yeah.
Because what we saw there was the worst fucking squash match I've ever seen in my entire life. And Netflix is. I'm worried about Netflix for Raw.
I'm sure you are. They had all kinds of problems.
Like I had to watch it on my phone because it kept freezing on all my other devices.
That's arguably the worst part. Is some Netflix engineers are going to be fucking crunching over the holidays to make sure that shit works perfect for Monday Night Raw in January. So. Boxing hasn't been fucking ever since MMA has ascended into relevancy. Boxing has not been relevant because anyone that would have been a boxer is now in MMA.
It's now just an MMA.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's bullshit. Cam just posts why, and links to apparently T-Pain and Mark Zuckerberg put out a version,
an acoustic version
of Get Low.
A Little John song,
right?
Not a T-Pain song.
Not a T-Pain song. But a Little John song.
I listened to a little bit of this.
Oh God, you're better than I.
I had to. A couple things. For journalistic integrity, I had to look a couple things.
Research.
Yeah. Proof positive that autotune can make anybody sound good. Is this song? Mark Zuckerberg? Like what's his reasoning for doing this? Who is he trying to appeal to by covering a 20-year-old rap song?
This is truly just fantasy wish fulfillment more than anything for old Zuck here, because Zuckerberg at this point he's 40, right? So Get Low came out when he was in college, right?
Mm-hmm.
It came out in 2003. So he was 1920. And so he's having big old nostalgia goggles for this. So this is a situation where one of the richest men in the world decides he wants to play guitar and cover a song that reminds him of the good old days, and decides to pay T-Pain probably an exorbitant amount of money to be the dude to do it with him, probably because T-Pain will do just about anything for money currently. And what's funny about T-Pain is truly, like, T-Pain has proved again and again that dude can absolutely sing without the need for any kind of aggressive auto-tune. And what's funny, of course, is that, like, the auto-tune that T-Pain is known for is, like, Melodyne cranked up all the way. And, ultimately, like, here's the thing about auto-tune. Auto-tune is a software also known as Melodyne. And everyone on Earth who records vocals uses it in some capacity. I've used Melodyne on my vocals because if you're off by a little teeny tiny bit, it sounds like shit, if you're trying to, like, really hit, like, a harmony or something like that. So sometimes you need that little bit of assistance to get that, like, microtonal kind of adjustment into, that E flat or what the fuck ever, right? But, once it becomes more severe, that's when you start noticing it, Again, every professional, every amateur, every vocalist on Earth uses Melodyne in some capacity. But I'm sure Zuckerberg, as someone who has not spent any kind of amount of meaningful time learning how to actually use his voice as an instrument, doesn't actually know how to sing properly, and therefore relied on Melodyne probably a truly aggressive amount, and you could probably tell by listening to it. And again, I'm refusing to listen to it because I can't bring myself to
look,
do it.
I'm not recommending anyone go and listen to it. That's not what I'm saying here. It's just, I don't know. It just seems like rich fuckboy dumb shit stuff going on.
That's exactly what it is.
I heard it on Last Week Tonight this past weekend. He had a joke about it, and it was god awful because he was like, "Yes, this is real. Here it is." Right? it was pretty fucking bad. Midlife crises hit all of us at some point, but Jesus Christ, like people who are obnoxiously wealthy even have the most obnoxious midlife crises, and it just is. Like, just be rich and be happy. God damn it! Like, I don't know. I don't know, man.
But you know what? If he wants to record a fucking album and start a burgeoning music career, and if that distracts him from ruining social discourse around the world, then go nuts, Mark Zuckerberg.
Sure.
Live your dream. Live your dream.
Look, my first job in high school was working at a guitar store where we offered lessons, and I saw 100 dudes, Mark Zuckerberg's age or slightly older, who finally picked up a guitar and said, "I'm going to learn how to play guitar." And they were all learning songs from 20 years prior because that's what made them happy, because they were all, like, divorced white dudes in their 40s who needed to learn how to play guitar in order to fill whatever void existed in their life at that point in time. And that's really what he's doing here. The difference is that he has just gobs and gobs and gobs and gobs of money and can hire people like T-Pain to sit next to him for pictures and sit with him in a studio to do that. So that's really it.
Wasn't he in the MMA for a while?
T-Pain?
Zuck.
Was he?
I think he was.
I know
Like
he's like
hitting, he's hitting like rich people. They're just like us. Like they hit. He's hitting the midlife crises of like average white dudes when when he's hitting them. It's just that he has money and he's famous, so it's just kind of odd to like be around to see it, right?
Yeah, he did. He took up training in both mixed martial arts and brilliant jiu-jitsu. Competed in a jiu-jitsu tournament in 2023, won both a silver and a gold in gi and no gi. Was promoted to blue belt. Was preparing to make his MMA debut, but suffered a anterior cruciate ligament injury that required surgery. That is, that's ACL. So
there you go.
Yes. So truly, one day we could finally see Mark Zuckerberg get the ass kicking he so truly deserves in public.
Oh, well.
I hope so.
Mad Coco G asks, have anime show/movie games replaced movie tie-ins? I say this as they've stuck to one specific genre, the 3D brawler, lately, and haven't really experimented at all with the property like a Dan RPG could be neat. I think this makes a lot of sense, just because, like the problem with movie tie-ins, and the reason why they don't work anymore, is because game development takes much longer now than it used to. And the whole point of the movie tie-in game is that you released it around the time that the movie released in theaters, and that's not really feasible anymore. So you're not going to see a lot of movie tie-ins, whereas anime tie-ins obviously are a little bit less time sensitive, because it's actually not even time sensitive at all, because especially with new anime, like it's like anything else, you need to let it get out there, get in the zeitgeist, get momentum, get a following, and then you can make a game about it potentially if there's enough people that care about such a thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would love to see sort of like more of like a, I would agree that like it does seem like the anime based games are kind of limited to either fighters or brawlers. I would love to see more RPGs, more things like kind of in a different style. And yeah, I keep hearing good things about Dan, but I haven't watched any of it. Maybe someday. I need to watch the Rama 1/2 remake on Netflix. I keep hearing that's very good. So, kind of out of the loop on anime these days. Too old for this shit.
Bingo.
Aren't we all? Johnny says, Game Awards nominees are out. I'm sure you guys will talk about it in detail. We did, but which game are you personally rooting for and hope it wins in any category?
Oh, I gotta look up the nominees.
I would love to see UFO 50 win Best Indie Game. I told you guys a couple weeks ago that I was gonna be pissed when this inevitably got overlooked in these awards, and it did. It only got nominated for Best Indie Game, and that's it. Even though I can think of several other games that it could have been nominated for. So that's fine.
I'm looking at the list. I see Tales of Kanzera Zhao is nominated for Games for Impact. I like that game, but maybe I'm a little biased, and I don't see it winning. But much like Issa Rae said, I'm rooting for everybody black. So I would like to see that game get recognized for something. But I don't think it will. Why is Multiverses in Best Fighting? All right,
because it re-released.
It re-released.
It re-released.
God, man.
It's back.
Jesus Christ.
We are so back. I think the one that like I guess I give the most of a shit about is I would like to see Metaphor win Best Score. just because I have always loved Shoji Meguro's work across the entire Mega 10 franchise, and the stuff that he has done with Metaphor is so clearly an evolution of what he did with, again, some of the earlier Shin Mega 10 games. And I think it would be nice to see him recognized for something other than the Persona 5 soundtrack, because for as nice and as good as the Persona 5 soundtrack is, I feel like that's all anybody really cares about. And his body of work is so complex and so deep, and he's a really prolific video game composer. So I think this would be like a really nice recognition of that.
It took me a while to work
and
out.
I would like to see FF14 win Best Ongoing Game, because Dawn Trail fucking ripped. So that's it.
It took me a while to warm up to the Metaphor soundtrack, but it's really evocative, much more than a lot of other RPG soundtracks. Like I think
Brad, I think you should like take some time, like whether you put it on with like while you're working, look up the Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey soundtrack and just like listen to that, because there is such a direct through line between Strange Journey particularly and Metaphor. So
I will do that.
Yeah.
Finally, T-Wash asks, what is some video game jank that you'd love to see? For example, they love some bad voice acting.
Look, I love Bethesda games, and I love Bethesda jank. I love when NPCs do not load correctly. I love when there is a horse on a roof for some reason. I love walking out of a building and there's just mole rats spawning out of the ground like a water fountain. I love when characters are sitting on just no furniture because the furniture did not spawn in correctly. I love Bethesda jank. I know that a lot of people don't like Bethesda jank because it means that the game was not necessarily programmed correctly, but I think it gives those games just, I don't know. I appreciate it. I think it makes the games kind of funny and unpredictable in a way that makes things kind of light and funny, even when you're dealing with multiple world ending crises at the same time. So I like Bethesda jank.
I hate jank. I hate no, I can't, especially because I really enjoy open world games, and open world games are usually the most prone to that. No, I can't stand it. I cannot stand it. I hate T poses. I hate breaking the world, falling into things. I hate it. And voice, they mentioned voice acting. Jesus Christ, I can't, in this day and age, that, no, unacceptable. Unacceptable. That's one, like, I'm playing the Veilguard, and I'm warming up to some of these characters, but there's one of them who is just, the detective, she's reading. She's not acting, she's reading. And everyone else is acting, and it just is. It really takes me out of it. No, man, I'm at the point where I when games aren't like polished.
Micah hates jank. So the only jank that I don't mind, and it can't happen often, but occasionally, I will get a chuckle when you have a game where your character is clipped through the level, but is somehow able to still like interact with things in the world, even though like you can't move, like you're stuck in like the outside the boundaries of the world and stuff like that. That's generally fine. I also like, and this kind of ties into the Bethesda thing, but it's certainly not the only games in open world games where you can kind of explore the geometry of a map interestingly, like especially if you're climbing up like a mountain or a hillside or something like that in a way that the game designers didn't really intend you to. But you can still find a way to kind of foothold your way up the geometry on the edge of a mountainside. That's the kind of jank that I'm willing to tolerate, as long as it's not popping its head in over and over and over again. So. Well, that was a great round of questions. Thank you guys very much for submitting those again. If you are a member of our Discord, you can ask us these questions that we'll answer on the show every week, and you can join by going to denspixels.com/fans. If you are listening to this in podcast form, we also put out the podcast on video, which you can check out by going to youtube.com/densepixels. And likewise, you can find the podcast as well as all the other TNP Studio shows on podcast apps around the world, including the Nerdpocalypse, Black Cinema, and Look Forward. A lot of good content coming out lately from Look Forward and Black Cinema, especially given current events. And of course, you can sign up for premium content. It's just $5 a month. You do that by going to denspixels.com/premium. That's it. This is a welcome respite from the woes of the world this week. So thank you guys very much for watching and listening, and we'll see you all the next time.
See ya.
See ya.
You're watching the Dense Pixels YouTube channel. Click the subscribe button while you're here, and make sure you check out our weekly podcast where we discuss the latest gaming news and our impressions on what games we've been playing.